Hello, Drake Hog and Sadboy Setup here. Today I'm reviewing this new Sefu album, Before We Knew. So near the beginning of the year, I reviewed The Sword Drew Blood and I gave it very high praise. To this day, I still believe it is a masterpiece and it has so many different elements that work well with it. Whether it's the very experimental mix of avant-garde and auto-crooning, or the way that the album flows together, or the very poignant and heartfelt lyricism. I believe that The Sword Drew Blood was a very well-crafted and well-thought-out album. Then I listened to How to Cry and I was a little bit disappointed on that end. It wasn't as well put together, it had much more rough patches in it. Even with its rough patches, I still felt like it was a very decent project. And this album kind of continues that. Now, this album did actually come out before How to Cry, like a week or two before, but I listened to this one after I listened to How to Cry, just because this one is much longer than How to Cry, so I could get through that one much easier. And the length is probably my biggest complaint with this project. With it being an hour in length and having 20 tracks, you have so many different ideas that are thrown out there, and so many different topics, and so many different vibes and stuff thrown out, and just, it doesn't feel entirely fleshed out. Like, this album feels like it's doing too much, but also too little at the same time. Like, you'll have these fully fleshed out tracks like Love Me Deep and Raw Blade, with their very good song structure, their poignant writing, and their great performances. And then you'll have tracks like Pure Potential, which have a great instrumental and have some great patches in it, but it's a little bit too choppy and feels like it's not a fully fleshed out idea. Like, I love that sample flip on Pure Potential. Once this track starts, it has a very unique vibe that's different from every other song that Sefu has put out thus far. But I feel like other than the sample, it's not really expanded upon in a very creative way. It just feels like one of the many ideas on here that wasn't exactly brought out to its full potential. And just like with How to Cry, I feel like the start of this album is pretty rocky, because especially like the first 6 tracks, it goes instrumental cut, actual song, instrumental cut, actual song, instrumental cut, actual song. And 2 out of 3 of these instrumental cuts aren't even that interesting. Like, I understand maybe doing it once at the intro to have this sort of vibe and to set the atmosphere for the album that you want to make, because clearly this is a different experience than the other 2 records I reviewed of his. That's something that I will commemorate Sefu on. He's always good at creating new experience with every record. But when that same idea is kind of put forward again and again and again within like almost every track, it gets kind of tiring. I do enjoy the instrumental of the Stargirl track. It feels very ethereal and laid back, and it just has this sort of vibe that you could know, you could just relax, you could just chill to it. It's pretty nice, just background music. But the other 2 instrumental cuts to start off the record are I like how the first one sets up one tone and then it transitions into another section of the instrumental, but it's pretty much looping the same loop over and over and over and over and over and over, and it doesn't really justify its 3.5 minute runtime. Then once we get to Breakfast in Bed, that issue isn't really there anymore. Not only does Sefu put a great performance on this track about trying to do everything for a significant other and trying to give them the best experience and stuff like that they can, but it's just so relentless and it keeps going and going and going and going, and the beat on this is so good. I have to press up every time it goes black because this shit's gonna shut off because I'm running YouTube on my fucking Switch. So Cruisin' does bring the energy down a little bit on his verse, but it doesn't ruin the track because his verse is especially kind of short. So while it does drag the energy down, it doesn't ruin it for me. After that, we have Raw Blade, which is another track that I already praised a little bit before. I love the sort of lo-fi mix on the vocals and the very, very minimal beat that it has. It creates this really dark atmosphere that I feel like Sefu contributes to greatly with his performance. Broken Homes is probably my least favorite track on this album. The intro gets me a little hyped because it reminds me of The Sword Drew Blood with that very, very heavy auto-crooning intro like tracks like Garden of Eden had, but god, this song sucks. I feel like it tries to create a dark atmosphere too, but it doesn't switch up enough or have any sort of really big drop or really big anything to keep the track interesting long enough for me. Do I like the ideas he presents and the sort of directions he takes each track in? Yes, but do I feel like that each track is fully fleshed out and that every idea is fully built off how it could be built off? No, I wouldn't say so. If I were to have to compare this to any other album that came out this year so far, it would have to be Pusha T's It's Almost Dry, because that record, I love the first half of it. I love it up until Diet Coke. Diet Coke is a good song, but once that song is finished, it feels like it just goes off into I don't know if I should call it mediocrity or trash. Yeah, every song after Diet Coke certainly is listenable, but like, it's just not of quality, it's not up to par with everything else. And I feel like this album suffers from that too. It feels like it has a lot of great ideas and a lot of great tracks, but it's mixed in with a lot of mediocrity and just a lot of fluff. When this album is great, it's great. Its lows aren't as low as other albums that I've heard this year, including that Pusha T. But when it feels like a decent amount of the album could be cut or trimmed down or shortened or more fleshed out, I feel like I can't say that this is a fantastic record. I do enjoy what I get here quite a bit though, and I can't really get mad with the results of this as it's a decent enough project. I think I'm gonna give this a 7. That's it for this review, so yeah. Bye. Also, my boy and I Just Dro dropped an album that we feel is like the catchiest record of the year so far. One of the best records. Not the best, but like we think it's decent. So please check it out. I'm gonna put a link in the description. Just, yeah, go check it out. Let me know what you think and stay tuned for the next review. Bye.